And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
After the Flood is a game from Tree Frog, which is a company that basically puts out Martin Wallace's games. A new company that he started up, an off branch of his War Frog games. After the Flood, though, is the first in what he says is going to be a series of three-player only games, which means it doesn't work with two, doesn't work with four, only works with three players. The boxes takes 3 hours, although I suspect once you know what you're doing, you could easily play it in 2 hours. But it's an interesting game that mixes area control with resource gathering. Very similar to many of his games where he takes a hodgepodge of mechanics. But this one actually is really interesting. Players are taking different empires after the flood in the early Sumerian days and trying to control as much of Sumeria as possible. A whole pile of different colored pieces come with the game representing the different resources that players are going to be gathering, whether they be wood, metal, oil, gold, textiles, and so on. And then you can see here's the board. And then over here, there's 3-player colors, green, purple, and red, a lot of pieces that are used for those. But this board is basically the crux of the game, and Martin Wallace did an excellent job at putting most of the things that you need directly on the board. I found myself very rarely having to look at the rules after our first hour of playing because any numbers, any things I needed to know was right on the board. As you can see, the game takes place here on Sumeria, and each turn takes place, players get resources and get workers, but the main part of the game is players have an action sequence. And this action sequence is being set up so that they can get points during the game. Some of the things that they can do is they can build cities in the different areas in Sumer. They can place workers, and there's a lot of different places to place workers. Over here, you can see worker boxes. Whoever has the most workers in irrigation will get the most grain each turn. Whoever has the most workers in weaving will get the most textiles each turn. Scribes let you move workers around the board, and tool makers let you make valuable tools. Tools are a great resource because you can trade them for pretty much anything. And that's a really neat sequence in the game. As you're putting workers out, and let's look at Chaldea here, for example. In Chaldea, you can see here that when you put a worker here, later on, you'll be able to trade for oil. Chaldea gives oil away. But what do you trade? Well, there's a little trading chart right here where it shows you. Whenever I want oil, I can trade either textiles or tools. Whenever I want metal, I can trade either grain, textiles, or tools. If I want gold, I can trade textiles, tools, or oil. If I want the very valuable stone lapis lazuli, I can trade tools, gold, or oil. And that's a pretty neat thing because you can't get these resources. The only way to get the resources, you don't get them naturally. The only way to get them is by trading for them. And you'll find that this grain and textiles are really useful because not only do you need them to put workers on the board in various places, but you also need them to trade. What each player can do each turn is they're going to be able to start an empire. And each turn there are 3 different empires that can be started. So here you can see on turn 1, the 3 different empires are the Akkadians, the Gutians, and you can start an empire in Sumer. Each empire gives a certain amount of armies, so I'd much rather have the Akkadians. And once you do that, you will take a bunch of army pieces and use them to conquer the land across the board. How do you know how powerful your army is? Well, at the very top of the board is a spot where you can put different resources to show what resources you're putting in your army, and whoever has the best resources in the army has the most powerful army, and they'll be able to knock out opponent's army. And the army combat is very simple. You roll dice. If you're more powerful than they are, you need to roll 5 or higher. If you're less powerful, you need to roll 7 or higher. Very simple, a bit lucky, but basically it has almost a history of the world feel to it, or even like the game Vinci. At the end of each turn, what players are trying to do is get as many soldiers on the board because every spot where they have a soldier, they get 2 points for that. But they also get points if they upgrade their cities. As you can see right here, there is a way to upgrade cities, and for that you need wood and then various other resources. And when you upgrade a city, you're taking a city and putting an upgrade thing on it. Depending on how many resources you use, you can get a whole pile of points. Now, what the game makes this game very interesting is the fact that you can't do everything. You really can't. You can have a huge army, and you can conquer all the land, but you probably won't get the resources you need to build really nice cities. You can build a nice city, but you're always taking the chance that your opponent is going to come and wipe it off with his large army. You can try and have the most workers in irrigation and weaving boxes, but then you're going to probably be giving up getting workers in the best trading spots. And because it's a three-player game, everyone is constantly at each other's throats, but I never felt like one player was weaker than the other two, and people had a better chance of hurting the weaker person. In fact, in this game, it was much better to go after the stronger opponent. Please don't try to play the game with what I just told you. The rules are a little bit more in depth than that. I explained some of the major points of the game that I enjoyed, but the game is not that complex. After we played it, I said, this really isn't that hard. Where the game is going to get you is on your turn, you're going to say, I have no idea what I should do next. And Martin Wallace includes a strategy guide at the end that says build cities. I found out that that's really important. But after that, you want to set up for your empires, but do you want to take the best empire in the first turn, or try and set up to take the best one in the second turn? And then when you have these empires, how soon do you want to get it on the board? Because the game allows you on your turn, once you pass, then you're out of that round, but other players have to pay extra resources to take their turns. So if you get what you want to do, have to get done quickly, you can force other players to go through their piles of resources much more quickly. And I like the fact that you simply can't do everything. On my very first game, I tried to build really great cities. I ignored empires, and I found myself having almost all my cities destroyed by the opponents. So then I tried to concentrate on getting the largest empire, and I was never able to build a really good city again. You have to be able to find that balance. The pieces are really nice. They're wooden pieces. The soldiers look like they're carrying a big shield. The cities are nice big blocks. Yes, more cubes for the resources. But the colors matched, and everything looks good. The board is really colorful, and as with all Martin Wallace games, there was a lot of historical background that I really appreciated. I like being able to see the Assyrians come out at a certain point in time, and the Chaldeans and the Egyptians, and seeing how powerful they were, and how the tools that the Sumerians made, they were able to trade to other people for great use. And that's very thematic, and I like how he did this. But what this basically is it's a glorified area control game with a little bit of war in it. If you don't like direct confrontation, you probably won't enjoy this game because people are going to destroy your cities. They are going to try and shut down your trading. They are going to come after you, and I enjoyed that. A disadvantage, I guess, in the fact that it's a three-player game. Yes, I'm always looking for great three-player games, and this is a good one, but I really wouldn't mind playing this with 2 players or 4 players. So I guess it probably might not work. The dynamic of 3 players is good, but how often do I have just 3 players? Not that often, but I'm able to get this played nonetheless. An excellent game. I highly recommend it. After the Flood by Martin Wallace.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.